Alright, in this video I'm going to quickly go over the new navigation system I'm putting in the Frogfoot. So the Frogfoot is an older aircraft, and so I really didn't want to put in a modern moving map type of autopilot system. I wanted a more period correct autopilot, and I very much like hand flying aircraft. I wanted this to be, a little bit more accurate to how it really would be. So I didn't want you to have, multi waypoint system. I wanted it to kind of be a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more navigating on your own type of system. So I essentially recreated an ADF, and so what an ADF is it's an older type of navigation system that we used to use for navigating in aviation. And so essentially what they would use is they would use old AM radio stations, or they would use an ADF signal from a particular antenna. So like they might have an ADF on an airfield. And so if you needed to navigate to an airfield, you would navigate to the ADF. So each ADF station had its own frequency. And so if you were going to navigate to, say you wanted to navigate to Boston, right? You could type in the frequency of an AM radio station in Boston, and the ADF needle would point directly at the antenna of that AM radio station. So let's say you wanted to go from, New York to Boston's too far for an AM radio. So let's say Worcester, Mass to Boston. So you take off from Worcester and you want to go to Boston. So if you put in the frequency of a Boston AM radio station that you knew was inside of Boston, the needle would point directly to Boston. And so as long as you pointed your aircraft so the needle was pointing straight ahead, you would head right to Boston. So there are a bunch of limitations to this type of system. One of them being that, you're not maintaining a course. You're just pointing at the actual station. So you get you're essentially homing around it. But it's a nice simple system for you to go directly to a point. And so this is the system that I've recreated here. So I'm just going to set up the autopilot. So we'll run on autopilot, make it a little bit easier here, so that we can do what we're doing. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is, so the pilots, what we used to have, in old school navigation, is we would have a paper map. So let's say this is our paper map. So next thing we want to do is we want to set a waypoint. We want to set this waypoint at the diesel gantry here. All right, so one of the reasons I'm making this is I want to be able to, do this in a career mode and still be able to navigate without, without seeing your own waypoints, and without seeing, without seeing your own waypoint, kind of like in a regular career game. So as you can see, I just deleted the waypoint. So we can't see the waypoint anymore. So we're going to use our navigation equipment. So I've put on my paper chart here, I put a mark at the diesel gantry. All right. So let's say the diesel gantry, that is our AM radio station. So in real life, if there was an AM radio station there, you would put in the frequency of the AM radio. We actually, when I was flight instructing, we used to listen to the AM radio on the ADF. So you'd put it in, the ADF needle would point right to the AM radio station, and the byproduct of that is you could listen to AM radio. So if we look at our bearing 2, it's showing 197. All right, so I'm going to go back to the map. So as you can see, 197 is a little bit, 197 is over here. Actually, never mind, I haven't typed it in yet. So once we put in the marker on our map, we're going to have to put it in the waypoint. So we're going to do input waypoint. Now let's look at it. Okay, 114. So let's look at the map. So we're headed this direction. All right, so that's maybe, I don't know, 220. Let me look. So we'll actually see where we're headed if we look at the... Yep, that was a guess, 220, and we're right on the money. So I used to do this professionally. So if we look straight down, that's 180. That's 90. So about 110-ish maybe. So let's look at our faux ADF needle. So there's 105. So now let's type in 100 because the number's decreasing as we move away from the station. All right, so here we're turning towards the whatever this number was. So all I did was input this number into the heading hold. So we're going to turn. Now, the vehicle's continually moving. So this is actually something you used to have to deal with ADFs, was that because you are continually moving, the number's going to keep changing. So you have to start doing what's known as homing, where you continually change your number to get more and more accurate so that you'll actually go right over it. Alright, so we leveled out at 100. So let's see what it's running. 94 and decreasing. So let's go 93. 93. Alright, so now we're going to turn to a heading of 93. 093, rather. Alright, so now we can't see our waypoint anymore. I shut it off like we'd have in career mode, right? So let's look at this. It's showing 94 and decreasing. We're at 92. We're headed pretty close to the station. So let's look at our map. And as you can see, we're headed right towards that station. Alright, so this is how the ADF would work. Now, I'd love to be able to take the compass needle and put in my own numbers and actually make an ADF. So the way an ADF would work is, if you think of the compass sensor, it has that needle that always points, you know, to a certain direction. So that's how an ADF would work. So in the cockpit, you'd have a needle, and that needle would always point towards the station that you had dialed in. So right now, the needle will be pointing pretty much about straight ahead, maybe a little bit to the right. We can actually see the island we're headed towards now. So the dock's right there. So the needle will be pointing right about here. All right. Now, as we pass over the station, right, because we're actually a little bit to the left of that dock, as we get close, the needle would start pointing at the dock, pointing at the dock. As we pass it, it would point behind us. So this needle here is not perfect, but it's going to do something similar. So as we get closer here, so as we can, you know, we just need to look at the numbers. So the number here is 98. So what that means, and it's increasing. So that means that because we actually, the waypoint's at the dock there, you'll notice it's showing, it's saying, hey, go further right, go further right. So let's put in a number, 100. I'm sorry, let's do 105 because it keeps increasing. So as you see with 105, which is where it is right now, now we're pointing right at the dock. So we're going to fly directly over the dock. Now you'll see that the number keeps increasing because the end of that dock is just to our right. So now as we pass over it, you'll notice the needle goes crazy, right, because it's behind us. Now it's showing it right behind us, showing 280, right, the opposite of the way we're going. It's saying, hey, the dock's behind you now, all right? So let's continue on. We want to go to our next waypoint, all right? So our next waypoint is going to be this island here. We'll set our waypoint, all right? We'll type that into our keypad, all right? And we'll look at our ADF needle. Our bearing 2 is 230, so let's type in 230, 230. All right, so this is going to turn us towards. So what I recommend is look at that number, type that number into the keypad, all right? Let the plane turn towards the target. Either, you know, you can do it manually or you can do it, you know, with the autopilot like I'm doing here. All right, so we're just going to let the plane turn. And once it rolls wings level, we're going to look at that number again and we're going to readjust. So this is called homing. You put in an initial number, or you put in an initial turn, and then you see, okay, is it a little bit to my right, a little bit to my left, and then you keep correcting it to be more and more accurate. So right now we're at 263, all right? Let's type that in. So we're actually going to increase it even more. We'll go 270, all right? Now that's the reason why I'm leading it. I'm going ahead with even a larger number is because we're still moving away. We're still not directly pointing at it. All right, so keep moving the number. So I think that's the island right there anyway. So let's look at our needle again. 276. So let's do 279. 279, and let's turn towards. All right, so I'm going just a little bit over every time because as you can see, there's 279. So I'm anticipating it. All right, so that's proper homing technique, is you keep entering in the number and you do some predictions. So there's my waypoint. I'm headed pretty close, but it's actually still to my right. So does the needle say that? Yep, it says it's greater than 278. So let's do 280. All right, we actually just point past the point. All right, so if you notice, the way I could tell we passed the point is the needle did a big spin. All right, same thing as last time. That actually happens at the real station. The needle will spin to tell you that you've passed the point because it's trying to go from forward to back. So now let's go to the hospital. We've set a waypoint to the hospital. Let's enter it in our keypad. Let's look at our bearing 2, 240. Let's type that in. 240. and we'll enter it in. Now the autopilot's going to start turning us towards that heading. Alright, so let's not look at our map at all before we hit the island. So we know that we're going to be going over the hospital island. So we should be able to, without looking at our map, fly over that hospital island. Alright, so 237. So let's see if it's decreasing or increasing. So you see the little numbers going down. So let's go 236. So that's how we anticipate what number we're going to need for our heading. So again, this is how we, this is an old school form of navigation that we used to do. Now it's increasing, so we actually went too far, which is fine. As you can see, the number's barely moving. We're talking 0.2 of a digit. So we're in good shape. So now we can actually take out our binoculars and look straight ahead, and lo and behold, there is the island. Alright, so let's keep watching our needle. 237, we're at 235, let's go 238. Alright, so this is a form of instrument navigation that is used to be used a lot. There are better forms of navigation like a VOR. A VOR would allow us to maintain a course. So we could go, say, 2402 to that island, and it would keep us on the line over here of, actually it would be, yeah, it would be on this side. 240 would be a line over here, so we could actually move and stay on that course. So as you can see, we didn't look at our map again at all. All we did was put in the waypoint. Now we can even remember the waypoint numbers, and we're going right over the hospital. Now as you can see, we're a little bit to the left of the hospital. Let's see if the needle tells us that. It does. We're going 237. Needle says 237.8. We're going to look, and as you can see, we're going right to where we're at. Now it looks like our point might be a little bit to the left. So as you can see, the number's going down, and we passed it. We know we passed the station when it does a big spin, and we did. Alright, so let's put in our next waypoint. Let's go over to the train station at North Harbor. We're going to set our waypoint. We're going to enter it in our keypad. We're going to check our bearing 2. It's 140 and decreasing, so we're going to go ahead of it and do 130. Alright, and again, we're going to lead it because we're still moving. And, we're still moving away effectively. Right, let's see if we can not hit this helicopter. Yeah, we'll be all right. We're, we're doing 120 knots. He's probably doing 60 or 70 knots. All right, so as you can see, we can do instrument navigation with this method. Now we can even see it. It's over there. So let's see if it tells us that. Yep, it tells us way to our left. So let's actually lead it by a lot. Let's go 80. All right, and the reason why we had that error, well, not really an error. The reason why we didn't get straight at it was we're constantly moving. So because of that, we have to anticipate how fast am I moving, how close is the station. This was a real close station. Now, it should be reading a larger number than 180, or 80 there. And as you can see, yep, and it's getting larger and larger as we pass it. All right, so the closer the station, the more accurate you're going to have to be because, you have less time to make your big turn. So we're also making huge turns here. So let's go a little bit further away. Let's go to the fishing village. I want to go right over the hospital at the fishing village. So I'm going to set my waypoint. I'm going to enter it in my keypad. I'm going to look at my bearing 2, 143 and increasing. So I'm going to go to 160. I'm going to anticipate that the number is still going up because we're still moving and we're not pointed directly at it. As we point directly at it, that number is going to be very small because our correction needs to be very small. All right, so I plan on adding a bunch of different gauges here. So one is going to be track. That's going to move left or right, so it'll tell us if we need to make a left turn or a right turn. Distance in nautical miles is just going to tell us how far it is to that point, and then ETA is how long it's going to take to get there. All right, so we're headed on our 159. Let's look. It was a pretty good guess, but not perfect, so let's go 145. All right, and this is how you'd really have to home in real life. You would make your turn, and then you'd have to look at it again. I'm probably going to end up moving that here so that you don't have to keep looking down as much. I don't really need that compass ball, so I'll put it here, and then I'll put all this information there. All right, so we're headed 144. Let's look at this. 150. Let's go to 150. So the more we're pointed directly at it, the smaller the turns we're going to have to make. The reason why we're having to make big turns and big corrections before is, you know, we were flying away from it, and it was, you know, like 150 degrees off of us. All right, so let's look at it again. I can actually see it now. So 151. So as you can see, we're getting more and more accurate. We have to do fewer and fewer, our corrections are becoming smaller and smaller, and we can use those small digits to tell us if we need more to the right, more to the left. All right, so let's actually look down there. There's the hospital right there. All right, so let's see 152 and climbing. So let's go 153. 153. All right, let's look at it. 152 and descending. So now we're good. All right, so let's look. We should be flying directly over the hospital. Yep. Now watch. The needle will freak out and it will spin. Now it's behind us. All right, so 335. If you look, we're going 152. 335 is right behind us, right? And that tells us, yep, we passed it. All right, so we'll do one more, and then, you know, I think we've got this figured out, okay? So let's turn over here we'll actually come in and we'll land. So we can actually use this to line us up for landing as well. So the runway's right here, so let's put it right about here, and that'll get us up, set us up for landing, all right? So again, we need to enter in our keypad. We're gonna look to the bearing 2. It's 86 and descending, so let's just go 75. All right, so we're gonna anticipate it again. We have a big turn, right? We're still heading this direction, so the number is gonna keep changing until we end up facing that point. So that's why I put in an anticipation of about 10 degrees. All right, here we're turning, so we want to point right directly at that point. All right, so now we're rolled out level. Let's look. 76. That was a really good guess. So as you can see, the more you do this, the better your guesses are going to be at where do I have to turn so that we're right on. So that's 76 and increasing, so let's go 78. All right, so let's look at our map, and we're pointing right at our waypoint. All right, so this is a really nice, easy method using real navigation methods that you know, are pretty old school, so they fit with the vintage of this aircraft, that make it so that you can use this aircraft in career mode without having to you know, have a moving map that would not be period correct. It kind of lets you do a little bit of RP. You know, I really enjoy this type of navigation. This was a big part of my degree, is, you know, learning about old types of navigation. You know, we used to do transcontinental flight nav on paper maps, you know, and plot courses how to, you know, go from continent to continent. So this is interesting stuff to me. So let's look over the airport at the runway there. All right, so as you see, we're coming up. We're actually not going to pass our point because I don't want to you know, miss the runway. So let's actually point it towards the runway. So let's set our waypoint there, enter it in quickly, read it, 25, let's do 20, because it's going to keep decreasing. And this should put us on a reasonable course to land. All right, I'm going to put down my gear, I'm going to lower my flaps to full, I'm going to start slowing down, and this should get us on a pretty close heading to landing. So I'm actually going to shut off the autopilot, and I'll hand fly. All right, we're a little slow. That's why the nose dip there was, we got down to 88 knots. This aircraft, like I said before, it doesn't like to go much lower than 90 knots. It starts actually getting some pretty realistic stall characters. I'm actually going to put some trim in. You know, in real life, you do have to constantly be trimming for every time you make a power change, every time you make an attitude change. So we're getting very slow here. I need to add a little power. So with that sensitive throttle, I can still a couple taps, and we get right on the money. So, a nice short runway here. I'm going to add a little power. I'm sinking too fast. We'll start reducing power. I'm going to tap the down arrow for brakes. And I can use my left and right arrows. Oh, I hit the engines way too much there. Alright, so that was kind of an unfortunate ending there, but as you can see, that's the new navigation system I'm putting in. It's based on ADFs, so if you have any interest, you can look up ADFs and how they work. But as you can see, a very simple navigation system where we don't need a moving map, we don't need our waypoints, and we can still navigate effectively. As I said, I'm going to add on a that gauge, so it tells you, do you have to turn to the left, do you have to turn to the right, making it a little bit more simple for you, and also having the time to the waypoint and the distance to waypoint. So thank you for watching.